So I'm going to make this brief so it'll upload quickly. You may notice your cell phone service being a little iffy. I've personally noticed what felt like a blood sugar drop of some sort today, except I moderated my diet and the feeling has not gone away. Over the last couple of days, the couple of sunspot groups on the sun have been releasing M and X class flares. And a couple of these long duration M flares, which just because an M is a notch below X doesn't mean it can't do some pretty wild stuff. A rare event happened like 2 days ago, and another one happened today, like earlier on today, much earlier, that basically, okay, when the sun's at its solar minimum, you may have no sunspots whatsoever, no magnetic fields putting little bubbles and loops out off the surface. Or there'll be like one spot. So most of the time, throughout the course of a solar rotation, it's like 11 days, I think, for the whole thing to rotate one time. In the course of that time, there may be one sunspot that just kind of stays around the far side for half of that. You'll go an entire week of sun with no sunspots. And then as the solar minimum wanes, you get these lines where, relative to the screen, you'll see them close to the poles. These lines, this is where your sunspots will be. And then as the solar maximum approaches, which this is, there is a 5.3 month cycle of minimums. And well, okay, so it's basically an 11-year cycle, or an 11-month cycle of minimum and maximum that then at the same time have, the sun's all 11s. It's the damnedest thing. It rotates in 11 days. The solar cycles take 11 years and 11 months. And there are 11,000 year cycles as well, or some kind of, I don't know if it's 11, 11, 1 or what it is, but it's an 11,000 year cycle too. Catastrophism keeps talking about 12,000 year cycle, but roughly it's 11,000 as well. So there's a number of things going on, but the sun is all 11s. And what happens is these lines of where the sunspots tend to be, as the maximum approaches, they get closer to the equator. They never really meet, but they'll go from being like, relatively speaking, like call it an inch from the top or whatever, to being like, relatively speaking, an inch from the equator. And at this point, it'll be sunspot, 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 a full crown on two loops, rings of just, the sun's magnetic field flips every 11 years. That is what it is. And so this is like these things coming together, the what started at the poles and bubbled their way to the center and then flip. And then they'll go back up toward the poles. Then they'll kind of vanish for a bit. And then they'll start to do the thing again. So that's the sun's basic cycles. It is its heartbeat. It is how our star runs. And it is fairly precise. And it legit, cycles of 11s. It's the damnedest thing. It's wild how it works, but guess what? It does. So what happens is, sometimes, very occasionally, when your sunspots are like this close, because we're just about to the max of mixing sunspots on this cycle of an 11-month cycle. And already, at this point, coming around from the far side of the sun around like this, right about here, was a set of sunspots. Now, if this is a flattened map of what the screen is here, that this is the two sunspots, and they're right about here. This sunspot group is about the size of the tip of my thumb here. This sunspot group actually extends over, and this is just the front side. There's a whole other, this is one of the most massive sunspot groups. If the seismics are correct, when it comes around, it could dim the sun a wee bit. An enormous, enormous sunspot field that is basically one big spot. This is kind of unprecedented. What also is unprecedented is when the tip end corner of this and this other one, the thumb size one down here, are just about this close, that their magnetic loops touched and turned into a loop between the two. which is like a short circuit. And that did a long duration M flare, crossing the sun's equator in an extremely rare way, like probably once in every 50 or 100 years kind of thing. That I really, once every 55 to 110 years or whatever. That this kind of long-term M flare, where these two north and south sunspot groups connect and have a plasma filament loop jumping around between, heating up. And as it heats up and over top of it, that little releases X-rays and ultraviolet in copious amounts. And the longer it runs it, the more it lets out. You've heard of cyclotron energy. That's a type of modulated electron. This is another kind of thing that is that same idea of this is a particle accelerator going on in magnetic fields at extreme temperatures on the sun. It is the shit that the solar scientists are trying to recreate in those tokamak things. When you watch the video and you see the little pink plasma moving and trying to make a ring, it's trying to do in Earth's gravity on a micro scale what the magnetic field lines are doing to hydrogen, helium, gas, and dust. Plasma. By plasma, what that means is it is so hot and so electrically excited that the electrons are not actually with the protons and the neutrons, but the protons and the neutrons are still together. But so you've got electron and because it's hydrogen, some of them are just loose protons. Then you've got your beta particles, which are your helium nuclei. That's a cancer-causing radiation if you have beta rays here. All in the sun, it's doing that all the time. It's a gas of that, basically, a superheated gas of radiation. It's a gas made of radiation and electricity and fire, light, kind of, it's plasma. That's what that, yeah. Particle accelerator. And the particle accelerator loop is bigger than Jupiter, circumference-wise. This happened and held for like an hour or something a couple days ago, and another one happened today. 2, 1 in 100 year or more, I don't know how long, but I know it's a very rare occurrence, and it's, even at solar maximum, it's an extremely rare occurrence. 2 have happened this week, and one of them was connected to a sunspot group that is possibly, you could take every planet and line them up inside of it without the planets touching and probably still have room. So over the next week, I believe there will be effects. That's all I really have to say for this video. If the sun does any flickers, you may notice it on the visible range. You may notice it seem to dim slightly if that sunspot group is huge and comes around. There may be a visible dimming effect. This may cause solar flares to be noticeable or not. Also, there's a chance of coronal mass ejection, plasma filament ejection, anytime it's Earth-facing in certain areas. This could be a monster kill shot kind of situation in the next week. Then again, it may not. But it is, as I said, already done a couple of extremely unprecedented things. So make sure you got food, make sure you got water. It may not even matter. We may all just get zapped, or the power grid may pop, and then it'll come back on. Who knows? Could lose cell phone, radio, internet, telephone, TV, communication for anywhere from hours to days to months, depending. Stay strapped or get clapped. Stay frosty. And if it doesn't, be thankful, but understand the sun is still building up to something that is possibly within decades or a century of happening. And sometimes these things happen when the time is right, not by a clock, which is why the 11,000 thing sometimes is 12,000. Thank you for watching.